Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my segment, Mental Health Unmasked. For those who have been following me, you know, earlier this month, I've revealed that I am suffering from depression and anxiety and have been in treatment and on medication since January. I shared my story to make others out there know that they're not alone, but I want to continue the conversation so we can spread love, raise awareness, and of course, start the conversation and break the stigma. And today I am joined by Dr. Christopher Albert from UTRGV with the Counseling Center there, and Moselle Barron, who is a licensed professional counselor with the Counseling and Training Clinic at UTRGV. Welcome, you two.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
It's such a pleasure to have you. A couple weeks ago when I had my segment, we were focusing on the warning signs and the symptoms. So then this segment today, I wanted to focus on treatment. And Dr. Albert, I just want to talk about, you know, how common it is for anyone, including college students, to be suffering from a mental illness.
Well, that's a good question. To answer that question, there's kind of maybe two sources of information we go by. One is we can hear from you know, what's going on around the nation at college counseling centers.
Right.
And the Association of University College Counseling Center Directors, every year they come out with a survey. They ask directors different aspects of their centers. And one is they ask, you know, how many students are you seeing, and what are they coming in for? And the vast majority say they're seeing more and more students and with more and more severe conditions.
And what would be those, what are they coming in for? Are you seeing more of, I know when we were talking on the phone whenever we were setting this up, that it's mainly depression and anxiety, and it's now more college students that are seeking help for that.
Well, we did a survey when I was working for the College Counseling Center with UTPA before UTRGV.
Right.
And in 2009, we did a survey out of the University of Michigan. It's called a Healthy Mind Study, and they asked those questions. They asked not just students coming to counseling centers, but college students in general, you know, what type of mental health issues you're dealing with. And it was real interesting. From UTPA, and to kind of give you a sense of who we're talking about, they also asked these demographic questions. And not surprisingly, the vast majority of the students identified as Hispanic. And these results are compared with this national cohort.
Right.
It's like a norm.
Right.
So we kind of see how we do in comparison with other universities and college students.
So where would UTRGV rank among other universities?
Well, we would rank in terms of the mental health experiences, we would rank about the same. And that is about 25% report signs of anxiety or depression.
Right.
That doesn't mean they have that diagnosis, but it's possible if they saw treatment at that time, they could be diagnosed. So we're kind of guessing maybe up to a fourth of the students are dealing with some form of anxiety and depression.
And the great thing about the counseling center that you work at is that this is free for the students to go to. It's free for them to seek out counseling. What kind of treatment or how do the sessions go to help them, you know, overcome this?
What we do at our counseling center, and we have myself, a psychologist, we have licensed professional counselors and clinical social workers. What we do is what's called like talk therapy or behavior therapy or psychotherapy. And so when a student comes in, we do an evaluation to see how they're doing, to see if the type of treatment we have is appropriate for them and if they're eligible. All UTRGV students, by the way, are eligible to receive services from us. And then from that assessment, we do a treatment plan with them.
Right.
And part of that treatment plan is we set up goals. So we're gonna give recommendations. We can say, hey, based on what you're telling me and what you're showing, I think you know, you're experiencing depression, and these are the recommendations. But it's the student that tells us what they want to get out of the experience, and we set up these goals. And and we, we would see them for usually starting off maybe weekly sessions.
Right.
And we apply different techniques from different approaches. A common one is something called cognitive behavioral therapy. So what we do is we work with their thoughts, because how we think about things and how we interpret things can determine our mood.
Yeah,
we know with depression that we have this what's called a classic negative triad. I think negatively about myself. I think I'm a lousy person. I think the world's a horrible place, and I don't think things are going to get better. And you can imagine it's really hard to get out of a depression when you have those beliefs. And so part of cognitive behavioral therapy is to help them challenge those beliefs, and at the same time find ways to live their life and cope with things like stressors, so that those thoughts can start becoming more positive and the mood starts lifting.
Yeah, it's very true. Even with my therapist, she makes me go in the mirror and say, you deserve to be happy, you deserve to be happy. And it's very true that you have to change your mindset, because those negative thoughts can really weigh you down. I want to go to you, Moselle, because you work with the Counseling and Training Clinic, and we had popped up a graphic earlier with the information, and that's information for the community. A lot of people say, well, I can't afford it, but you guys offer free counseling for the community.
Yes, we do. We're very fortunate that we have a beautiful facility both in the Brownsville and Edinburgh campus, and we're able to offer services to the community, whether it be individual, group, whether that be marriage, play therapy, children, adolescents. As long as they're 6 years and above, we can service them. We do have a questionnaire asking them why they're seeking services. We let them know that we meet weekly with the same counselor at the same hour, same time, and we have up to 12 sessions per semester, whether that be the fall, the spring, or the summer. And so because the community is aware of our resources, or word of mouth or advocacy, we get calls all the time. We have a waiting list, and it depends on how many of our counselors are accessible, so that we can then decide what counselor is best suited for a particular client.
And the people that you are seeing that are coming into this clinic, is there an overall common mental illness that they're suffering from, or do you see just more of a variety of everything?
We see some patterns. Definitely there's a lot of stress, whether it be work-related, whether that be with relationships, whether that be with family. We see a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. We see court-mandated cases for anger management, domestic violence, a lot of family dysfunctions, behavioral issues, children with ADHD, behavioral problems, parenting skills that need to be acquired, and so vocational career search. So we can work with all populations. We also work with grief and bereavement. Right now we have an 85-year-old woman who is coming in for services and lost her husband, and so we can provide those type of services.
And I think part of breaking the stigma is people may think that at first you have to accept that you actually are maybe going through something, which is why we worked a couple weeks ago with the warning signs and the symptoms, which usually takes either yourself or more times than not maybe someone else to recognize it. So what do you see is the barrier? Why is it so hard to get people to not only accept what they're going through, but then take that step to get treatment? Because I'm sure your first encounters with these people, the first session, I can imagine they're just probably sitting there and it takes a while to crack open that shell to get to the root of the problem.
Absolutely. I think with our Hispanic population, they're less likely to seek treatment. So as a person experiences help, a lot of times they will then advocate that to family members. The schools do the same thing in promoting our clinic. And so there's going to be some resistance at first. Developing that therapeutic relationship, that bond is crucial. Matching up the right counselor with the particular treatment issues is important. And so those first few sessions are critical. But what we have found out from our surveys as they exit, that it's an eye-opening experience for them. Right. Usually they are in dire need. Something's not working in their lives, something's not functioning, and they're looking. And somebody, whether it be a physician, whether it be somebody in the community, reaches out and says, why don't you just call? And we always say, give it a try, see if that feels good for you.
Oh, especially if it's free, right?
Yes.
You have nothing to lose, and I think the key that I myself can say, and you guys can say too, is that once someone actually does seek treatment, it takes a lot of patience, and it's not something that will be fixed in a couple of sessions. And I'm sure you can speak to that. Is that you're seeing the same student for several weeks?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes the student will come in and maybe we just see them 1 or 2 times, but most of the time it does take a good amount of sessions. And research shows for an issue such as anxiety disorders or depression, you're looking at least 12 to 16 weekly sessions at least to get better. And in regards to the difficulty in getting there and accepting the treatment and reaching out for help, we don't just sit in our office and wait for students to come. We do what's called outreach. And a lot of that is education, because we recognize that first of all, they may not be aware that we exist. And they may not be aware that they're dealing with depression, so they learn about that, about resources and about mental health issues. But also there's that maybe that stigma there that okay, maybe I'm dealing with depression, but I shouldn't seek help, or I'm ashamed and I don't want to talk about it. I think fighting stigma is not just in our case, talking to the students, but it's talking with families, and because a lot of it starts there. And when I talked about that survey before, and I said, well, our depression rates and anxiety rates seem about the same as other college students, but what was different is that the vast, up to half our students live with their families, and at other colleges and universities, it's only about 7%.
Oh, wow.
But the students are saying, if I have a mental health issue, I'm less likely to go to my family or my friends to talk about it. And so we know that the stigma is pretty high here.
Yeah.
So it's really to get the word out and say, hey, this is part of being human sometimes, that we go through these struggles, and it's okay to admit I'm struggling and that I need help.
That you need help. It took me a very long time to get to that point. And before we log off, Mazel, I just want to see any last words that you have for all our viewers. Thank you who are watching at work, at home, wherever you are. If there's someone who's watching and they think, okay, maybe this is me, just why it's so important to seek treatment now, because sometimes if you just let it linger, it's like a bottle, right? You shake it up and you take the top off and it explodes. I think that's more of a reason why we're seeing the suicide rates go up, right? As people are just bottling this in. So let's just talk about why it's so crucial for people to just seek treatment and not be scared.
It's a very good point. I think we can address it on a preventive or interventive type of treatment. And so if we go in preventive, we're going to have an advantage. The symptoms are not as severe, and they can get the skills that they need to get stronger to be able to deal with their problems. So I think once we remove that stigma, yes, they come in and they're able to realize this is really helping me. This is confidential. It stays between the privacy of the counselor and the client. In our case at the university, we're very, very fortunate, both sites, is that as a supervisor, I'm watching what's going on in every single room. Live stream, I'm clicking back and forth. And so our students, a win-win situation. They're getting the training they need to be able to get their hours through practicum and internships. And at the same time, they're learning new skills, but we have high standards. Our students have to have a theoretical orientation. They have to utilize different strategies, different techniques. We review treatment plans. We case all their files. So they're getting very good services.
And these are graduate students. These aren't, of course, freshmen coming in. These are,
Yes.
they've been studying this for a few years now.
Oh yes, our master's program in counseling and guidance, as well as in the clinical psychology and rehabilitative counseling, is very demanding. And so they've done their coursework, they really put in a lot of effort cognitively. Now it's a time to practice.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's so different getting into the pool and trying different techniques and strategies, letting go of the side. And our students excel. They are so well prepared. They're doing very well on their national exams, et cetera. So it's a win-win situation for our students as well as for the community.
For the community, because again, free of charge counseling. You see the numbers on your screen for the Edinburgh and Brownsville Center. I want to thank you two so much for joining me this afternoon for such an important topic.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks. And of course, we will be doing this every Friday. Last Friday there was severe weather, sorry about that. But the next segment, I'm looking to focus on the science behind mental health and look at how the brain works and when it comes to emotions. If there's other topics you'd like me to discuss or focus on, you can just contact me on social media. Nicole Hickl, CBS 4 on Facebook, and Nicole KGBT on Twitter. Have a great day. Remember, spread love, raise awareness, start the conversation, and I'll see you for CBS 4 Valley at 5, 6, and 10.